شكرا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا أيحسب أن لم يره أحد ألم نجعل له عينين ولسانا وشفتين وهديناه النجدين فلا اقتحم العقبة وما أدراك ما العقبة فك رقبة أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة يتيما ذا مقربة أو مسكينا ذا متربة ثم كان من الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالمرحمة أولئك أصحاب الميمنة والذين كفروا بآياتنا هم أصحاب المشأمة عليهم نار مؤصدة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات إخواننا الذين سبقونا في الإيمان نهدي للجميع ثواب سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت. طيب الله أنفاسك. أحسنت.
أحسن الله إليكم. جزاكم الله خير.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب أرني الحق حقا فأتبعه والباطل باطلا فأجتنبه ولا تجعله متشابها علي فأتبع هواي بغير علم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Today we've reached lesson 10. Yesterday we covered the right of the tongue. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yes. So today our goal is to go over the right of the hearing and the right of the eyesight, inshallah. Now what we'll cover today are both of those rights, and then we'll look at the parts of the right as action items that the Imam Sajjad salamullahi alayhi is giving us. So we start with the right of the hearing. The Imam starts off by saying, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ السَّمْعِ, and as for the right of the hearing, فَتَنْزِيهُهُ عَنْ أَنْ تَجْعَلَهُ طَرِيقًا إِلَى قَلْبِكَ, for it is to protect it or exalt it from making it a pathway to your heart. Okay, what does the Imam mean by this? In order to understand this sentence, we have to keep reading. Okay. He says, إِلَّا لِفَوْهَةٍ كَرِيمَةٍ, except for a good utterance, تُحْدِثُ فِي قَلْبِكَ خَيْرًا, that creates in your heart goodness. Okay, so basically what the Imam then is saying here is, or sure, I'll complete it. أو تكسب خلقا عظيما, or it allows you to gain some honorable manners or honorable ethics. Okay. So here, when he says then تنزيه عن أن تجعله طريقا إلى قلبك, he, except for these things, so that means protect it. Here تنزيه means protect it and remove it from places or situations that will cause the pathway, meaning the pathway of hearing, the channel of hearing, which is a channel that goes to your heart, because he says here تنزيه عن أن تجعله طريقا إلى قلبك. So protect it and keep it from being a pathway to your heart, except for the following things. Except for إِلَّا لِفَوْهَةٍ كَرِيمَةٍ, except for an honorable utterance, meaning good words with which you can honor this channel of hearing. Okay. أو so إِلَّا لِفَوْهَةٍ كَرِيمَةٍ تحدث في قلبك خيرا عفوا that creates goodness in your heart أو تكسب خلقا كريما or that causes you to gain good manners, okay, honorable manners, which tells me then that what the Imam is telling me here is don't make this channel of the hearing as a channel that will allow anything other than those two things that the Imam mentioned, which means that the Imam is telling me be a gatekeeper to your hearing. To these two ears, make sure you're a gatekeeper. And what he's saying here is filter whatever goes in. So if something is bad, that's level 1 filtration. Okay, filter that out. And then if the words are good, then what kind of good? If it's not the kind that's going to create goodness in your heart, and it's not the kind that's going to allow you to gain good ethics or good manners, then don't allow it in. So really, there's like 3 levels of filtration. Number 1, don't put it in a place where it could hear, in an environment where it could hear haram things, whether it's backbiting or whether it's haram music or whether just being in a bad environment. That's filtration 1. Filtration 2, don't allow anything other than good words to enter. So once you remove the bad words, only good words are left, right? Now, from these good words, are they good words that allow you to are they good words, afwan, that allow you to gain good manners, okay, or create goodness in your heart? If they're not of those two types, then those are also out. Filter those out as well, okay? And so what's left is that channel becomes a channel that is now purified. Only, pure, and if you will, like pure water, right? It's completely transparent, it runs beautifully. So let only beauty enter into your heart. Let only positivity enter into your heart. What are the best sorts of utterances that could really affect your heart and brighten your heart, would you say?
I would say dhikrullah.
Ahsant, yeah, dhikrullah. Dhikrullah is the best. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. So if I want my heart to be in a state of fulfillment, right? A state of contentment, then what do? I have to put myself in an environment and I have to put myself around people that remind me of Allah, an environment that reminds me of Allah, around people who remind me constantly of Allah, right? And I need to be in a state of dhikr. And if I'm around these great training partners and in such a good environment, then it'll be easier for me to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Agreed? If you agree, say I agree.
I agree.
Now, of course, all of this is going to affect your heart, right? So it's going to brighten your heart with the nur of Iman because you're constantly in a state of dhikr, of remembering Allah. Now, I want you to notice something here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me really, essentially, when He says tanzihuhu, it means elevating it from this, putting it in a place that, you shouldn't put it in a place that is unbecoming of a creation of Allah. You shouldn't dishonor your heart. Does that make sense? Because we said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created our hearts, right? And created every part of us. So did Allah create it to be dishonored or to be honored?
To be honored, inshallah.
Be honored, of course, because Allah only creates what is good. So since Allah only creates what is good, that means I myself, once I realize that Allah created me, once I realize that He is unlimited, once I realize that He sees all things, right? Hears all things, once I'm aware of that, and I have that connection to Allah, that I feel a sense of obligation to Him because He created me, He brought me to this world, then I'm going to be too ashamed and too shy to do anything that will disappoint Him, including who I'm with, including where I am. المؤمن لا يضع نفسه في مكان الشبهات أو في الأماكن المشبوهة. You know how, for example, maybe your friends might invite you out, right? And it could be some restaurant or something, and this restaurant might have, God forbid, liquor, for example, there, okay? Or it could have, haram food or something like that. And then, okay, well, it's a business meeting, and they invited me to this restaurant, so now I feel a sense of obligation to go, right? But I know that there's a possibility that if I'm sitting at the table, that they might bring alcohol, God forbid. Okay. Or someone might see me sitting in a restaurant that serves alcohol. Now, it's not haram to be in a restaurant that serves alcohol as long as you're not drinking the alcohol and as long as, you're eating what is halal, right? But if you had a choice between a halal restaurant that doesn't sell alcohol, a halal restaurant that sells alcohol, and a non-halal restaurant that has alcohol in it, which one would you think would please Allah most for you to be in?
The first option, no
First option, of course.
halal, no alcohol.
Ahsant, yeah. If, for example, your friends invite you out to the beach, okay? Now, we all, because I want to make this practical, right? If they invite me out to the beach, should I really go? Knowing that beaches are going to have not just men, but they will also have women, right? And most likely there is going to be women that maybe aren't dressed properly there, right? Is it becoming for me as a believer, right? To put myself in a situation where I could be seen there or exposed to, God forbid, a woman who's not dressed decently?
No.
No, right? So here you're thinking about, okay, well, what places should I put myself? I should put myself in places that please Allah. Should I, if I know that there's a group of people and they might be Muslim, but I know that every time I'm with them, they end up backbiting someone, right? Versus I have a group of Muslims who don't backbite anyone. So which group should I be with?
Second option.
Second option. Now I have a group of Muslims, okay, that let's say backbite people, and I have a group that are non-Muslim, okay, and they don't backbite anyone or anything, and then I have a group that are Muslim and they don't backbite anyone, and they don't put themselves in haram situations. Okay, which group should I choose?
The third one?
The last one, exactly. Now, that means then when he says tanzihu, when the Imam says tanzihu, he says, listen, remove it from places that cause this pathway, this channel to become poisoned by this stuff, by bad words. Because if he's telling you, oh, only allow, good, honorable words that create, goodness in your heart, or words that help you attain good akhlaq enter. What is he saying then? This is the mantuq. What's the mafhum? Mantuq, we said, is what you say, or what is stated. We said al-mafhum is the opposite of what is stated. It's the implicit meaning, not the explicit meaning. So then what is he telling me? He's telling me, don't let words that, don't let words that create 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 unrighteousness in your heart, right? Don't let words in that don't allow you to attain good akhlaq or good ethics. And he gives me only two options here, by the way, if you notice, right? He says it has to be فوهق كريمة تحدث في قلبك خيرا, or so a good utterance that creates goodness in your heart, or it's the sort of utterance that causes you to gain good akhlaq, honorable akhlaq. Everything else goes out the door. That means I have to make sure that I honor my hearing by not placing it in a situation or in a place that is going to expose it to the opposite of these things. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, say it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Then he says, فَإِنَّهُ بَابُ الْكَلَامِ إِلَى الْقَلْبِ. Then he clearly says, look, it is a gateway for words to reach your heart. يؤدي إليه ضروب المعاني على ما فيها من خير أو شر. This channel, right? If you open its gateway, the gateway of hearing, and you allow words in, know that these words, they have meanings. And you're going to allow all sorts of meanings to enter your heart and affect your heart. على ما فيها من خير أو شر. Could be good, could be bad. So he's telling me I have to discriminate. I have to be very discriminant, and I have to be very meticulous in the environment that I place myself in the people that I associate with, in the words that I allow to enter. There has to be a filtration system, right? If it's not those two things that create goodness in my heart and that give me, teach me, allow me to attain good akhlaq, then, then I must not open the doorway to that, right? I must not. Why? Because then I might allow, bad things to enter my heart and that'll create a darkness in my heart. Think about, for example, when you're around someone who's negative. How does that make you feel when you're around someone who's negative?
It gets me negative, feel bad.
Yeah, it makes you negative. When somebody says something that's not nice about someone who you care about, what does that do to you?
Bothers me, hurts me.
Bothers you and hurts you as well, right? So you see how just from hearing it, your heart is affected, right? Because where does it hurt? What do we say? We say jarahni.
In my heart.
In my heart, yeah. Subhanallah. Okay. And then finally he says, look, there's one criterion for you to be successful in achieving this goal. Okay. And that is what? That is to seek help from Allah. وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. There's no power to do so without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now let's look at these action items for the first right. The action items are number one, exalted from being a channel to your heart, yani your hearing. That's number one. Number two, only expose it to generous utterances that create, or honorable utterances that create in your heart righteousness, goodness, and that allow you to gain gracious manners. And number three, it is the gateway of words to your heart. Okay. Number four, it receives all types of meanings, whether they're good or evil. And lastly, there is no power to do so without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, this is basically a summary of what was written, what we received from the Imam in this right, but in English. All right, so now let's move on to the right of the eyesight. The Imam starts by saying, وَأَمَّا حَقُّ بَصَرِكَ. As for the right of your eyesight, فَغَضُّهُ عَمَّا لَا يَحِلُّ لَكَ. For it is to cast it away from looking at things that are prohibited for you to look at, that Allah has made haram for us to look at. وَتَرْكُ ابْتِذَالِهِ. And make sure that you leave this action of debasing it, of humiliating it, right? Ibtidal al-shay is to bring it down to a lowly level. By what? By exposing it to those things that dishonor it. So notice there's the theme here. وَتَرْكُ ابْتِذَالِهِ. If we go back to the right of the hearing, he starts out with وَتَنْزِيهُهُ عَنْ أَن تَجْعَلَهُ طَرِيقًا إِلَى قَلْبِكَ. Right? Remove it from a situation that could cause it to be a channel for bad things to get to your heart. Right? And then here, what does he say for the right of the eyesight? He says, فَغَضُّهُ عَمَّا لَا يَحِلُّ لَكَ. Casting it away, removing it from looking at. So remove your eyes, cast them away, remove them away, move them away, I should say, not remove your eyes, keep your eyes where they are. Move your eyes away, right, from looking at things that are prohibited. And by the way, غض البصر, according to one narration, if you want to be successful in this life, the best way is غض البصر, meaning looking away from things that are haram. If you look away from things, you don't see them anymore. Does that make sense? If you don't see anything, if you don't see those things, then are you likely to fall into haram? If you look away from them?
No.
And I always say, out of sight, out of mind, right? If you look away, then you're not going to be thinking about it. So for example, if I am talking to a sister, okay, or let's say just of course, a sister such as a hijabi, she's fine, she's all well, she's all alhamdulillah covered. But if I'm talking to a woman that's not a hijabi, she doesn't wear a hijab, okay, she might not be dressed, properly or appropriately. So I should cast my gaze. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنْ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, right? وَأَنْ يَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ, right? Allah says in the Holy Quran, in the chapter of Note, verse 30, and tell the believers that they should cast their gaze, right? So that they can do what? They can protect their privates that way. So in order for you to protect yourself from falling into haram thoughts, right, casting the gaze is what's going to help you. Because out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of
mind.
Out of mind, exactly. So same thing, you might say, okay, well, That's not a problem that I have, but all of us are on social media, right? And we know that sometimes on Google ads come. And even if you shut off the ads from them targeting you based on what you watch, you know, they're going to end up sending you stuff that has nothing to do with your interests are. They're fishing to see what you respond to. So you're going to get random ads. And some of these ads, are going to be haram ads. So you have to be careful. Sometimes I think it's better for them to monitor what you watch, so that you only get ads that are relevant to what you watch. Does that make sense? Because it's extremely dangerous when you don't give them that information, because then what happens is you end up getting so many more haram ads that pop up, when you're, let's say, watching YouTube or something. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah,
so
it
if
does.
so now if a haram ad pops up, I should feel a sense of hurt inside of me. Because what? Because I just exposed my eyesight to something that is damaging to my heart. It's exactly like that example that we mentioned, I think, yesterday when I told you Imam al-Baqir, salamullahi alayhi, he was walking with one of his companions. His companion said to him, why don't you, O Ahl al-Bayt, sin? How come you don't sin? And he told him they were passing by a butcher shop, and in the back there was a dead carcass with maggots eating the flesh, and it was decayed. He said, "You see that carcass?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Would you eat that?" He said, "No." He said, "Why?" He said, "It's disgusting." He said, "That's what we see sins as. That's why we would never fall into sin, because this is literally how we see sin." So I want it to be such that when I am exposed to sin or something that is sinful, that automatically I feel that, I see what the Imam is telling me here. I see that as something disgusting. And that it becomes hurtful to me if I even got a glance of it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, I exposed myself to this. Does that make sense? I'll bring you a better example, an even simpler example. In the month of Ramadan, right? We fast every single day for the entire month. When Eid happens, how many of us, when it comes to Eid breakfast, we feel guilty eating?
That happens, yes.
Doesn't it? Yeah. You feel a sense like, okay, should I be doing this? Like, you feel you've become so used to not eating, because of fasting, that when it is time for you to eat, you're extra careful and cautious, and you almost even don't want to even look at the food, right? And then you have to keep reminding yourself, no, no, it's Eid, it's good, it's mustahab for you to eat, and so on. And imagine if this was something that was a sin. Like literally, when we come out of the month of Ramadan, we're coming out trained not to sin, not to fall into sin. And so when we come out, it should be that if I see something that before the month of Ramadan was something that maybe I got desensitized to, now after the month of Ramadan, I'm no longer desensitized, because now I was like, oh my God, it's shocking to me to look at or to see or to hear something that is haram. Does that make sense? Automatically, I'm going to cast my gaze. Automatically, I'm going to cast my hearing. I'm going to protect my hearing. Agreed?
Agreed.
The problem is, of course, maintaining that after the month of Ramadan. That's the problem. Okay. And that's where there have to be several factors that are going to help you. One is putting yourself in an environment that doesn't cause you to fall into looking at or hearing things that are haram. Two is surrounding yourself with a good bunch of people who have the same mu'mineen, that have the same goals as you have. And three, always remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keeping him in the forefront of everything. So when Imam Ali said, ما رأيت شيئا إلا ورأيت الله قبله وبعده حوله وفيه. What is he saying? He's saying, before I do anything, I always consider Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first in the equation. Right? First and foremost, I see Allah first, what Allah wants of me when it comes to this situation, and then I make a decision. Whether it's what you look at, what you hear, where you put yourself, who you put yourself with, and around whom. Agreed? If you agree, say I agree.
I agree. I agree.
I agree.
So then casting your gaze becomes important. And then he says, وَتَرْكُ ابْتِذَالِهِ. Again, he's focusing on this whole issue of don't debase this, meaning don't bring this creation of Allah that is, since it's a creation, the all perfect created, that means it should be honored, right? It shouldn't be dishonored. by you exposing it to haram things, by you placing it in a place where it's going to be exposed. The possibility is even there, just the possibility of being exposed to haram. Okay, honor it. If you do otherwise, then you've dishonored it. Then he says, except. So what is he saying first? He says, cast it away from things that are prohibited and make sure that you don't dishonor it, except meaning use it for this. Don't use it for that. I want you to use it for this situation. لموضع عبرة. Unless you're looking at something and you're learning a lesson, a moral out of what you're seeing. Okay? تستقبل بها بصرة, which will allow you to, gain insight. أو تستفيد بها علما, or you gain knowledge from it. So why look at something that you're going to, gain some sort of moral story from it, okay? Because that'll give you insight that helps you with your wisdom. It'll make you wiser when you see something that, oh, look at how this person ended up. God forbid that happens to me. God forbid that, he's saying that all of this stuff that he did caused him to fall into the situation. So now I've learned that, you know what, I have to make sure that my kids don't fall into that I don't fall into that. So that's given me insight, right? This is maybe something I didn't think about before, or it could be something that gave me knowledge that I'm going to benefit from. And then he says, فَإِنَّ الْبَصَرَ بَابُ الْاعْتِبَارِ. Know that your eyesight is a gateway, again, to what? To al-i'tibar. I'tibar means to gain that moral and the wisdom out of all things. So if you expose it to bad things, right, then that's not going to allow you to do that. So here's a summary of the action items that the Imam gave us in terms of the right of the eyesight. Number one, cast it from that which is prohibited upon you. Number two, don't debase it, don't humiliate it, dishonor it. Number three, only use it in situations of learning, a moral, in which you gain insight or benefit and knowledge. And lastly, the eyesight is the gateway to gaining morals and wisdom. Okay? Everybody got that? If you got it, say I got it.
Got it.
Okay, very good. And this is the entire right of the eyesight with the translation. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين الفاتحة على أرواح المرحومين مسبوقة مشفوعة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, I do.
Yes, Brother Sajjad.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. The first question I want to ask is, we were talking about the interesting subject about ruh, al-aql wal-ruh wal-nafs wal-qalb wal-lisan. Now, the ruh moves the body. The aql, Allah Ta'ala, He refunds you, He punishes you. Now, my question is, if the aql is in charge, why should I be punished? Or if he was, and the other meaning is, if he's taking good decision and we are getting refunded for that.
You mean you were getting rewarded?
Rewarded, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
You said refunded. I'm thinking, I understood what you were saying, but you were...
Yeah, sorry, it's all about business. The other side is, if he's making bad decision, we're getting punished for it.
Okay.
Now, why the body, why the soul getting punished if the aql taking good or bad decision?
Okay, well, so يوم تشهد عليهم أيديهم وأرجلهم, right?
Yes.
Right. So the role of these things, these parts, these faculties that are mentioned in this right, as well as in the Holy Quran, is they become a manifestation. They manifest, what you're thinking, your intellect. We said yesterday about the lisan, ويعد شاهد العقل والدليل عليه. It basically is a reflection of the aql that you have. Because now, when you think about something, you cannot act. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not punish you because you didn't act. You might have thought about doing something, but you didn't do anything. So He's not going to punish you because you didn't actually move it into action, turn it into action. Okay? But once you act, and then these devices, these faculties Allah has given you, will testify and say, He used me for this. Think about it this way. Like if you have a younger brother, okay, and you know, and you tell him to do something bad. Like I remember when we were younger, this one guy I was working, I remember in my uncle's store, and we were very young, and I remember these two guys came into the store, and they walked in. These two boys, they walked in nonchalantly. One was older, one was younger, okay, and the older one told the younger one to steal, okay. So the younger one listened to his older brother, and he stole, okay. Now he didn't do the action of stealing. He used his brother to do the action of stealing, right? Allah gave him a brother to honor him, right? To take care of him. When asked, why did you steal? He said, he told me. He testified against his brother. So the same thing here. You have a relationship with your body parts, and your relationship is to honor them, to give them their right. So if I use that body part in a haram manner, then it's going to testify against me that you used me this way. Okay? Got it? So number one, the role of these body parts is basically like a hard drive that basically gathers, kind of information on how it's been used. Okay? So that then it can testify against you if you used it the wrong way that dishonored it. Right? So now here, of course, the intellect will be punished because the intellect is what moved these body parts to do these things. If the intellect didn't act, because you can have the intention of doing something, but then you don't do it. After having the intention, you have to have the drive, to actually do that action. Whether it's tahrir, meaning telling that person, yes, do it. Okay, like that brother told his younger brother, and he'll be punished, because his tongue will bear witness upon him that he used me this way to do evil. Okay, got it? If he was the one who stole himself, then obviously his hands would testify against him because he won't verbalize to his hands steal, right? Instead, he'll manifest it through the action of stealing. And so, of course, these will testify against him, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, punish him, punish the intellect of the soul. Okay? Now you say, all right, well, why does Allah punish the body parts then? Right? يَوْمَ تُحْرَقُ جُلُودُهُم. Right? On the day that their skins will be burned and then replaced and then burned. Right?
Correct.
Agreed?
Agree. Yes, Sheikh.
Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes it such that the soul will be tortured by feeling this pain. Okay? He used it the wrong way, but remember, this is a physical manifestation or a tool, right? That he's going to feel through. That's why our ulama tell us, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, when He resurrected Uzair's donkey and his, in front of him, He was showing him that I will resurrect, you on the day of judgment. I have that ability, right? And I will give you the ability to feel pain as well. Okay. Got it? And that this is the method Allah has chosen, for us to feel the pain. Okay?
Got it, Sheikh.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Brother Yusuf.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu.
I got a question. So I understand about the عقل, the heart and the body part. بس السؤال اللي عندي أريد أفتهم هسه لما العقل يفكر كتفكير زين، يعني يفكر إنه يريد يسوي هيجي ويريد إنه ينتج هيجي وعنده هدف، شلون إنه يقدر يخليه إنه شلون يصير habit إنه يقدر ينفذه؟ لأن هسه الحرام عليك تبعد نفسك منه، بس هسه الزين يريد إنه يخلي جسمنا إنه not procrastinate، إنه يريد إنه يسوي هيجي.
Yeah, so we mentioned this yesterday with the right of the tongue, where it says, first he says, أما حق اللسان فإكرامه عن الخنا وتعويده على الخير. So you have to diligently kind of make it used to doing good. The repetition is what makes it used to doing good. Repetition turns into habit, Without repetition, there's no habit. That's why the month of Ramadan, every day we repeat fasting. And that helps us purify ourselves, and it helps us, pray on time. It helps us be more God-wary. Agreed? Agreed,
Correct.
Yusuf? So
Correct.
what I would tell you is, if you want to put your foot on the right path and you're having difficulty, then the best way for you to establish a habit is to fast, right? Fasting
Correct.
makes you more focused. So,
Yes.
am I right or no? So the
Yes.
best way for you to start a good habit is to do it while you're fasting. Because when you're fasting, there's less distractions. You're more God-wary. You're not going to put yourself in a situation where you're distracted. You're not going to check your phone as much. You're not going to be on your social media as much. Okay? Because research has actually shown that exposing yourself to social media, even, by the way, your phone being on with the what do you call it, and not in airplane mode, in regular mode, the amount of radiation that's coming from the tower to your phone, okay, and from the satellites to your phone, is in the realm that you don't see, actually creates kind of destabilizes your ability to think clearly. So imagine when you're looking at your screen as well, constantly. In the month of Ramadan, we don't tend to look at our screens as much. And even if we do, we look at things that bring us closer to Allah. Am I right?
Yes.
Right? So that means then, number one, plan of action. If you want to do something, have the drive to do it, fast. Okay? Fast, and do it while you're fasting. That'll get your foot on the right path. Then after that, what you do is, you make sure that you surround yourself with people who will hold you accountable, people who have similar goals to you, okay? Or people who, that if you tell them, listen, I want you to hold me accountable if I don't do this, okay? So people to remind you, okay? That's why Allah says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ in the chapter of Al-Asr, right? وَالْعَصْرِ, Allah swears by time. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, surely man is in a state of loss. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and do good deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, right? Except those who do what? Who collectively remind each other of the truth. And meaning that Allah, that al-mawtu haqq, wal-hayatu haqq, wal-jannatu haqq, wal-mawtu haqq, that all of these are truths, right? Right? وَأَنَّ الْآخِرَةَ آتِيَةٌ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا, right?
Yes.
Right? So, these individuals are there to remind you, to put you back into reality. If you surround yourself with people who are heedless, who don't have that mindset, then you're not going to have that mindset either. You're going to forget about it. So you have to put yourself in an environment that always reminds you. And then you yourself actively have to either have a sibha in your hand and do a dhikr, okay, so that you're always remembering Allah, okay, or one of those tickers for the counters, right, that you get in from ziyarah, those counters, you click on it, 1 2 3
Yes.
4, and you constantly have it with you, and you're doing dhikr all the time. I find myself that if my sibha isn't in my hand and that ticker is not in my hand, it's easy for me to forget to do my dhikr, okay, but if I have that, that's going to help me. Okay, and if I have that, then that's going to motivate me to please Allah and to move forward, to start a good habit. But you need all those factors, and start with fasting. Does that help? Yusuf,
Yes,
does
it
that help?
helps a lot.
Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. Yes, Abu Ahmed.
السلام عليكم.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
سؤال سريع. عندنا النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي.
Hey.
How do you distance ما رحم ربي بأمارة بالسوء?
Oh, we already covered that in the class on the nafs. So go back to
Okay.
that video, watch it.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
answer is there for you.
Okay.
It's very, very straightforward. Okay.
Okay.
Because the nafs has to be tamed by the intellect. So the short answer, once the intellect has the knowledge that it wants, and you connect to it really well using the VBC system we talked about, you value Allah, you believe in His importance in your life, you'll be committed to Him, and committed to not falling into, what is haram. And so the nafs then will become controlled by the intellect, because the intellect will be strong, because the intellect will be strong and it will tame these. These will succumb. The power of imagination, power of desire, the power of anger will only be for what pleases Allah, because the intellect is strong. And you'll make the right decisions that will move you towards Allah, because you'll constantly remind your heart with the positive talk of your
You're training, exactly. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And so
But
then what happens is the nafs now is tamed. It moves towards upwards, towards transcendence and what believes Allah. Otherwise, what happens if the intellect is weak? These guys go wild. This guy grabs on, drags them down to the satanic decisions. And since you're not reminding your heart, what settles in your heart, you're not reminding your heart of Allah, what settles in the heart is a darkness, which is a rain, okay? Which makes the person blind. They can't really see, the reality of
the quick question is Ma Rahima Rabbi is when you understand that God is merciful, He's going to be merciful regardless of what. Illa Ma Rahima Rabbi. This is the question. The illa.
No, that's not the translation, Haji.
Okay, this is my point. Yes.
Yeah, go back to that lecture, you'll see
I
that
got it.
this is a formula Allah is giving us. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الله والرسول لعلكم ترحمون.
Yes.
إلا ما رحم ربي هو من أطاع الله ورسوله.
من أطاع الله. Exactly.
We
Yeah.
cover that in the lecture. Just go back to that. The answer is fully there for you. Okay.
Inshallah.
All right, we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts what little we offered. We give the thawab of what we learned, inshallah, today to Al-Alwiya Imad, to Arwah Amwat Al-Haji Abu Ahmed, his mom and his dad, and the souls of your dearly departed relatives, as well as the mu'mineen and mu'minat. We ask that Allah hastens the appearance of an Imam Al-Hujjah with barakat salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى بارك الله بك شيخنا.
بكم. بسم الله.
شيخنا أحسنتم، جزاكم